Hey guys, welcome back again from Tampa Bay. Today I've got a review of a brand new camera system. This is from a company called Sykik. This is their Sykik Rider X21F, their top of the line camera system. This uses two cameras for front and rear recording, and I'm going into this knowing full well that it's not going to be a perfect product. It is not meant to replace action cams. It's not meant to replace a GoPro for doing trip videos or motovlogging or anything like that, but think dash cam in your car for accident recording, for just who knows what recording, but also very importantly for while you're parked and away from your bike recording. It has that kind of feature and functionality built in. Now, I know it's going to have some quirks. I'm going to be installing it here on the FJR. I couldn't even install it on the bobber, and we'll see why when I get into this, but we're going to take a look through it. And I also have the optional wired remote control. I'm not sure how useful this is going to be or not, but I'll at least run you through its operation. Usually these kinds of accessories I'm interested in. They also have a wired GPS receiver, which will give a map overlay while playing your videos back, at least through the device. Not something I'm particularly interested in, so I'm skipping that, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You guys know what a map looks like. So let's go ahead and open this up, see what's inside, and go over some of its strengths, weaknesses, throw it on the bike, see what the video looks like, see how useful it is, and most importantly, see how it works in and away from the bike situation where somebody might bump into it, say in a parking lot, or worst case scenario, tip it over. I'm not going to test that, but we'll see how it does. Now, one important note is that even though this is the only model they list as a 60 frames a second camera, they list it as 1080p, two cameras at 60 frames a second. Note that they are doing the old switcheroo on stats there. It's only 30 frames a second at 1080p. If you want 60, you got to drop it down to 720. So kind of like GoPro used to do with their stats and specs, especially when 4K used to come out. So inside here we have a user manual, and it is identical to the one I downloaded and printed off from their website. So not a whole lot of info in here, really not a whole lot that's needed. It's just going through the menu controls and a very simple wire diagram. We've just got the cameras to plug in, and I'm going to do, there are a couple different options you can do for power. I'm going to go direct to the battery. I'll go through my tender that I've got so I don't have to open up all my paneling, but it has what they call the smart park system, where it will turn on and off automatically based on motion of the bike. And it does have a low battery protection too, so it won't flatten your battery charge. So super easy here. The one major gotcha, and this is why I could not physically do it on the bobber, the cameras are waterproof, but the control unit is not. So you need a space that is 100% weather tight to hide this guy right here. And why they put a screen on something you have to tuck away is kind of beyond me, but maybe it's just for spot checking your video. If something happened, I could see it being useful there. But this guy has to go under my seat to be completely packed away. And it's about the size of a very small old cell phone, like a flip phone clamped together. That's really about it. Or an old point and shoot camera. It's really about that size. So this is going under the seat. Everything else, and I guess I have to feed all the wires back through this way. There we go. Everything else just runs however you can through the bike itself. So we got the control unit. Here's one of the cameras with an extension cord. Let's take a look at that unit. And these you can mount depending on, obviously, where you're going to put it, permanently, semi-permanently. I am not going to be using these screws and screwing into my bike. I'm just going to be using some 3M adhesive, and they do give you a little bit here to place the bracket, or you could Velcro it, whatever you want to do. But here's your little bullet cam. You can see about the size of it there. And they do list that it has some IR illumination, so we'll be testing here in the pitch black garage and see what happens there. So that would be good if you're, I see a little hole there, hopefully that's for a microphone, we'll see. But it should work in, a pitch black parking lot. We'll test that out and then give you a what should be a very generous extension cord, and it's a little DIN type cable there. And it does disconnect there if you need it shorter. So we got 2 of those cameras, and then here is the basically power brick. And this is where the GPS unit would optionally plug into for power, and where the direct to battery connection can go. Or like me, you can go into a tender unit if you already have a direct battery connection, or you can go direct to a switched accessory outlet if you please. And then it will turn on automatically based on your bike being on or off. But I want the Smart Park feature, so it detects and starts recording with any motion. That includes normal recording and somebody doing something to your bike. Now it has 2 specific recording modes, and this is where the wired remote may or may not be suitable for everybody. In normal recording mode, whether you're just going down the street or whatever, you know, this is in what's called loop mode, and this is very popular for some people using GoPros. Basically, it will record little clips of video, and you can set it to 1, 3, or 5 minute length clips. And once it fills up the card, and there are 2 cards in here, 1 for each camera. Once it fills up the card, it loops back and starts writing over the oldest files. So you never run out of space and stop recording. You just run out of space and record over your oldest files. So what's the difference between that and normal mode? Well, the remote fires off basically a manual recording in what they're calling emergency mode. So if you press start on the wired remote and start recording, say you're going for a ride and you hit start and you ride for an hour or whatever, that will never be overwritten in this normal loop mode. So that can work for and against you. You could use up the space on your card and not have any room for the loop mode, or you could accidentally stop recording and run out of space on the card. So there are pluses and minuses. And here we just have DIN connection extensions for the 2 cameras and the power module here. And you can see the spade connectors if you want to go direct to a battery or a switched accessory connection, and this will go to the control unit. Then we have the other battery, or I'm sorry, the other camera. And in here we have a USB extension cord, and we have a couple different rubber mounts here for the cameras. I'll probably be using these, so it gives you some flexibility, and a whole bunch of zip ties and a microfiber cloth and a couple 3M adhesive pads. And that's it. All right, now I'm going to have fun, do the install. This is going to be completely different depending on your bike, of course, and let's see where it ends up on the FJR. So the first thing I'm doing here is laying everything out, just seeing where I want to run cables. I'm going to tie into my power up there in my little dongle. That's just going to be temporary. And I've got the power unit here to hide, and the 2 cams with their cable runs. Obviously one going to the front, one to the rear. The rear one I probably won't need all this extension cord for, so that'll tidy up a bit. But here's the main issue, and this is the main control unit. The fact that it's not waterproof is going to be an immediate deal breaker for so many people. Not just for those that simply want it to be waterproof, but for those that need it to be waterproof. I probably have 2 spots on this bike without drilling holes that I can even physically mount it to. This is the best case option I have. It's a little funky. Let me show you how it mounts. First of all, they give you kind of like a GoPro quick release mount, except there's no locking tab on it. It is free to slide at any time, in or out. So they absolutely need to put a locking tab on there just to protect this from vibrating out, or you have to mount it in this vertical position like this, so where it can't. With the seat on, I barely have enough clearance. I mean, it's like a couple millimeters above this screen surface. And most bikes don't even have this generous of an area. Now, again, if you wanted to drill holes, that opens up some possibilities. You could put it in your glove box if you want to drill holes to feed all the wires through. You could drill holes and put them in your saddlebags or a top trunk, but I am certainly not doing that for this kind of testing video, at least, unless I absolutely love this thing, and then it's an option. But for the purposes of this video, we're staying safe without modifying the bike. So now I've got these 3 dongles and all the external stuff to fit. This little power module, that's not a big deal. This can just self-adhesive somewhere, and they do give you enough pads for that. Now this mount itself, at first I thought they just gave you a standard tripod kind of mount, which would make things maybe a little easier for some using a ram ball or something, but no, it's a non-standard screw. And even this little tripod, what looks like a tripod adapter, is not. First of all, this is not a tensioner with a normal screw control. There's a floating nut in here, so when you twist this, it just dials the nut in or out. So you can't take this out and back it out like a GoPro accessory. It doesn't work that way. This top latch here is not spinning the bolt. It is just locking up against this. You have to spin the whole mount or spin the whole unit to release these. So it's basically get it in position once and you never touch this again, and all you're doing is tilting it and using this slide mount. I'm not even going to call it a quick release because there's nothing to release. No mounting tab whatsoever. But you do need to regularly access this and be able to get to both sides because the cards are located on opposite sides. And you got 1 card for each camera, control buttons on this side, and all your wires and connections over on this side. And it has to be somewhere stiff enough to detect any kind of vibration or hit to the bike in order for it to start recording in that accident mode. And I have this darn near as tight as it will go, and it's still really loose. That's why I wish it was an actual GoPro mount, because those things you can absolutely lock down or even replace these thumb screws with bolts. But this is not, it just looks similar to it. But I can't get this any tighter, so I'm just going to have to hope that it is tight enough to function. We'll see during testing. But now I just have to figure out where I want to mount the cameras. I'm just going to use the self-adhesive standard mount for the bullet cams here, just again for this temporary testing. But they do give you, like I said, where did I put them? These nice flexible rubber mounts, so you can take off the metal mount here and just slide the whole bullet housing inside this for a cleaner install. And again, just totally depends on what you're mounting to. This will obviously work on a curved surface. I would imagine that's its main point, whereas this one is made for a flat surface. But I've got enough flat surfaces, I think, on the front or rear to test this out. What I'm not sure of is the tilt of the camera. I would imagine that this is adjustable. I'll see when I actually install it, so you can level your horizon depending on your mount. I know that there is a mirror function for the rear camera, so it looks normal in your videos. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this installed here, show you how that hooked up, and let's do some testing. And we're installed. All right, at least, like I said, semi-permanently. The only thing I'd really have to do differently if I wanted this here for good is to hide my wires differently. Really pretty simple of an install. I've got the rear one mounted right up here under my luggage rack. Again, you could put that just about anywhere you wanted. You just want to avoid floppy surfaces. Like I wouldn't put it here on top of the tail lamp light because it flexes a bit, but here on this steel frame, that's not going anywhere. And you do just unscrew the end bullet mount and you can adjust the tilt or take off the bracket if you so choose. Got everything just laid in here. The control unit itself is securely mounted and it does work. I just went through and set up everything in the menus, which basically just consisted of setting the resolution for the front and rear cams and formatting the 2 cards. I'm using 2 64 gig high-speed cards in there. It will support up to 128 gig cards. And then the power modules just kind of bungeed in there for now. And ran my power wire down the right, my front cam wire down the left, which is mounted right up here in front. Kind of like a deer whistle. Focus, camera. There you go, I think. So anyway, that's pointed forward. And now let me see if I've got enough juice here. I was getting kind of a low voltage thing. Let me turn off the light and see if the screen brightness will be good enough. There we go. So let me focus on that. And you can see that it shows a front, a rear, or a split screen. That's what you see now. So the rear is up in the corner. And I'm interested to see if the files themselves are going to have all this information on. I have Oh, see, I just had the bike off for 3 minutes, so it stopped. Now I think I should be able to just turn the key on, power up the bike, and then it's looking for any kind of vibration to actually turn on. So let me start the bike. It should auto start recording. And it does. But I want to see if all this other information is on the actual files, and we'll see that after we do some testing. So there's the front cam. All I've done is level them so far. I've got all the information except the date display on, which just shows orange on the bottom like any point and shoot camera. I don't really care for those. And of course then if you have the optional GPS, you can also play back a map screen through the unit. Other than that, it's the standard looking camera stuff. So you switch between the front and rear cam view with the buttons here. Now it's recording both no matter what. This switch here is just what you're viewing on this screen. If you want to play it back and, you know, check anything out, that's all that this is doing here. It's recording both all the time, period. So here's the rear. You can see it's actually picking stuff up pretty well. This is in complete darkness. I do not have my porch lights on. This is my camera. That's my car. So this is in dark. Very, very impressive low light pickup, have to say. It is pitch black out. And then we can go just to the front cam here. So far as a dash cam system, faults notwithstanding, so far so good. But let's take it out for a ride and see what happens. Oh, and I'm happy to say there is a setting in here for recording audio on or off. So I don't know if it's picking up the audio from this, which I suspect it is, and everything will be through the same mic, or if each camera has a mic, I'm not sure, but I think there kind of looks like a mic port on this control unit, so I think all the audio input will be coming in through this. Let's give it a test. Let's do a night test right now, and then tomorrow I'll do this in the daytime, and we'll see what kind of quality we get. Now let me run you through the impact detection, really the cornerstone of this entire system. This is what this is all about. Remember, this is a dash cam only system, and I'll get into that more at the end. But here's the thing. The unit's installed, the bike is off, completely off. So it's like sitting in a parking lot, right? And what you're concerned with is somebody doing something to the bike. You want some coverage of it. So there is a G sensor built into the unit, and it has an off, low, standard, and high settings. It is on the highest sensitivity right now. So obviously in a parking lot, what are you concerned with? Well, I'm concerned with the ass clowns that sit on your bike. I want to throat punch people that do that to somebody else's bike. I mean, it's like getting in somebody's convertible. You just, hate that. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about car doors. You know, opening and bam, they're hitting the side case or side fairing of your bike, whatever, putting a gouge in it, okay? And I'm obviously concerned about a car hitting the bike and you come out and it's on the ground. And a lot of guys online have that happen. A car backs into it usually. They don't see it and plow, you know, there goes your bike. So how is it protecting you? Well, the G sensor here is constantly monitoring. And don't forget, there is a low voltage protection in there. So at 12.1 volts, it shuts itself off completely and is not even monitoring for shocks to save your battery. But if your battery's good, I don't know how long it's going to last before it gets down to that point. That's going to depend on your conditions and your battery conditions and how much draw this has. couldn't tell you. I don't know if it's hours, days, or weeks, but it's going to be in there somewhere before it actually shuts off. In the meantime, it's looking for a shock load. Now, you might be concerned about the way it's mounted because it is on this plastic mount, and you know, it's got some flex. So it's not exactly rigidly mounted. However, I have already tested by securing it down to this steel beam, which is part of my Jivy 357 rack, which is directly bolted to the aluminum frame, and it made no difference. And I'll go into that in more detail. There's good and bad news here. All right, good news is if somebody knocks your bike over, yep, it's going to trip. Bad news is anything but that, it does not trip. And again, I'll go into this in detail in a minute, but it requires quite a large G-Shock, even on the very highest sensitivity setting. And I'll go into that for a second why. But basically what happens is, and there's another downside here, there's a good 5-second delay between the something happening and you having any footage. But let's say a car plows into your bike. So I'll show you, I'll demo how hard it takes to come on. And right now there's no red light on. When it's blinking every half second, that means it's going to be recording. When it's on steady, it means power's on, but it's not recording. So it's completely off right now, monitoring for a shock. So we'll pretend we're a car door here. Those are big enough whacks to move the bike. All right, that's harder than any car door is going to hit your bike, and absolutely nothing. So obviously, whacking the front would do even less to transfer a shock. We're directly back here. So let's go directly into the luggage rack here. This, again, is directly connected, and it's right down to the unit. And again, I've already tested this by holding this against the bar, and it didn't make any difference. Again, I'm whacking it hard enough. Okay, there it finally went. Very direct strikes is what tripped it. So it's still not recording, and there. So that was about 5 seconds of delay, and it is recording. Here's my hand. And it's recording on both cameras, however you have it set up. Obviously, that's also going to work as you're tootling down the road and you go down. It automatically goes into emergency mode, even if it's normally recording. It will transfer immediately after an impact into emergency mode. So, what now? Why isn't it working for the lighter impacts or somebody getting on the bike? It is not tripped by motion, by the way. I was bouncing on the bike and absolutely nothing happened. It is a sharp impact only that trips it. The problem is they're using one setting. To fix the problem, you need 2 modes for impact detection. One while off, you need to have that very sensitive, and one while normally recording. And it works actually just fine in normal recording mode now, because if you're riding down the road, the normal vibration, if it was really sensitive, would be setting it up into emergency mode all the time. So that wouldn't work. Obviously, they chose that priority over the priority of having it very sensitive while parked. If they gave you 2 different sensitivity modes completely, that would really be helpful. But that 5-second delay, oh man, that is absolutely killer. It wouldn't be a detriment if you have an accident on the road, because you still have the normal footage up until the point it switched into emergency mode. So, and it's already on. You don't have to wait for it to boot. That's the problem, is the boot time. So it really does need to boot up a lot faster and be a lot more sensitive to be useful in the parked emergency detection mode. So that's that. But, you know, it does work if you're going down the road and you get in an accident. It will record an emergency file that's not overwritable, and that's its main purpose. Now, another note I wanted to mention is it requires very high-speed cards. The instructions just say class 10, but that's really a completely meaningless spec, especially to non-tech people. Class 10, very quickly, simply means 10 megabits per second or greater. The bitrate of these files is 74.5. Absolutely obnoxiously large. That is more than any of the GoPros, even with ProTune on. There's no reason that a 1080p at 30 frames a second file needs to be anywhere above 30. Seriously. But here's the thing. They're sticking in so much extra metadata. All that on-screen display stuff is embedded in the file itself. And that also has a side benefit, or detriment I should say, of being a complete pain in the butt to do any kind of editing with. Here's the thing you have to wrap your head around, and it wasn't until tonight that I finally got it. This is only an emergency dash cam system, period. They never expect you, unless you have an accident, to even pull the cards out of the system. Period. Stick 2 cards in there, format them, let the system go, and never touch it. Unless you have an accident and you need the footage. And after you do that, you're gonna have to do a little work to them. I can't even edit them in Adobe Premiere CC because they are so non-standard. They're using an H.264 codec and an AVI wrapper, so you would think they're normal, but there's that extra data that crashes Adobe just opening the folder with the files in it, just to even look at them. Whole program crashes. You have to transcode them. I used Handbrake into a normal wrapper and it worked just fine. And I verified that visually the quality was fine. What they expect you to do is only be playing them back on that screen. So you can see all the overlay data, switch back and forth on the fly between the cams, and that's how you're supposed to play your files. Okay, so let's say you want to go for a ride and you're going out with your buddies and you want to record an hour-long trip, not out of the ordinary, certainly nothing unusual. So you record it and you take the cards out and you put them in your computer. Guess what? You have a maximum of 5-minute clips per cam. So now you've got dozens of files that you have to first transcode just to get them into the editor. It's just a pain in the butt. Oh, and don't mix up the cards because, like I said, they're not meant to come out of this. They're formatted differently. You can't mix and match them. So if you do put them back in, they're not going to record right. They're even recording front and rear differently from one another. Same picture format, but a different file format. Very strange. But like I said, that extra metadata is just meant to be played back in the system on this screen only, period. So as long as you understand that it is just meant as an emergency dash cam system, everything starts to make a lot more sense, especially the mounting of the system itself. I thought when I first was putting this in, and I said, you're gonna need access, easy access to the card. No, you don't. You really don't. Quick note on the audio, it is very low quality, but again, it is only meant to be used as a dash cam. It records in mono, no big deal there. 500 bit rate, very low sampling rate. It's okay. You guys heard the samples. Not meant for anything exciting, just meant for documentation. So it doesn't add too much to the bit rate in the grand scheme of things. Now here's why it really took me until this very end of the project to get it through my head. This is a dedicated dash cam system. They throw some terminology around on the website, and just the way they're marketing it, that really does make it seem like it is supposed to be used at least somewhat for pleasure recording. Take, for example, the recording resolution and frame rate modes. They call them cruise, standard, sport. Okay, those are normal recording terms for slower or fast motion. You really don't need any kind of those decisions for a dash cam system. You should be setting it to max resolution, and it is what it is. That's it. It's just a little confusing. And the whole description, they just lend you to think that this is more of an overall camera system to do pretty much whatever you want with it. It's just not clear, at least it wasn't to me, at least at the time of filming and reviewing this, that it is a 100% emergency dash cam system. I can't stress that enough. So what's the bottom line? Bearing in mind, it's now much clearer to me, intended use. It does have a couple limitations, but overall, I am impressed. Price, not that bad, really. Oh, I did want to mention the remote control. Absolutely pointless. All it does is manually trigger an emergency recording mode. That's it. And again, it's not like you would be using it like I use my GoPros on a trip to start recording something and then pull it off later. You know, forget that. Maybe somebody has a really good use for why you would need that. The only thing I can think of is maybe you're going into a situation where, man, I might drop my bike. This road looks really sketchy. It's icy out, it's muddy out, whatever. I might drop my bike just in case. I want to make sure 100% that that file is never overwritten. I'm going to manually trigger that and then go on my way. That's all it does. So you don't need it with this particular system. This is meant to be 100% hands-off. You forget it's even installed on the bike, and you just always know that you have that insurance built into the bike of having video coverage if and when something happens. That's it. That's what this product is designed to do, and it does it very well. Cameras, I'm impressed with. They flat out told me they are not trying to have the best video quality. They're not trying to be an action cam or GoPro competitor. And their video quality is not bad by any means. In fact, it's pretty darn good. You do see a generational gap in the sensor compared to the latest GoPros. You know, you have a dynamic range limitation. You don't see the deepest blacks in the road and all the details in the clouds at the same time. That's dynamic range. That's very minor. If you think about it in the context of an accident, it documents everything very well. I am extremely impressed with its low light capability. The sensitivity is phenomenal. In pitch black, it has very good detail with still very good resolution. I don't see a lot of artifacting and blockiness. It really does what it's designed to do very well. And now, bearing in mind that you are never meant to touch the system once installed, I don't even really care that much about it being waterproof, because you have no reason for it to be up on your handlebars. You have no reason to be looking at the unit. You do nothing with it. That's it. You turn on the bike, it's hidden away, it's automatically recording before you're rolling away, and it shuts off when you're done. If anything happens, it's already saved the file, locked into its cards. That's it. So it is a completely autonomous system that does work very well. The quality is great. Construction is phenomenal. There is nothing low quality at all about this system. The wiring is top notch. The bullet connectors and the DIN connectors are top notch, very secure. They could add a little locking tab to the quick release mechanism, but you know what? Now that I know you don't have to take the thing on or off ever, you can just directly tape that to something. You don't even have to use that little tripod mount. If I was doing it again right now, I would simply take the double-sided tape that they give you and just stick that thing right on the mountain bar and be done. That's it. Totally simple. I do give it a thumbs up. I have no problems with the construction. The install was flawless, and it does everything it promised very well. You just have to make sure that it fits within your limitations. So who's this for? This is for somebody with a large bike that is worried about capturing evidence, having an accident on the road, that somebody's gonna say rear end you at a light. Going down the road, you know, say you wipe out your bike, well, again, for insurance, for peace of mind, who knows. So it's for a very small market, to be honest. It's not going to be for any kind of casual rider. It's not going to be for anybody that doesn't have the physical space to install the system somewhere. Waterproof. It's probably going to be for those people that love gadgets. I know a lot of people that, especially with touring bikes, you know, their dash is filled with radar detectors and laser jammers and GPSs and CB radios and SATCOMs and other stuff too. I know some people that have these cool power distribution centers that Bluetooth to your phone, and it's all controlled by a smart device just to turn stuff on. I mean, it's like Star Trek. You know, gadget gurus are gonna love this. $300 is the price point. Whether it's worth it or not to you, that's up to you. But I think they're definitely on the right track. So, that's it. Hope this helps somebody. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If it was horrible, give me a thumbs down. If you really loved it, subscribe to see more, and we'll see you next time.